Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boy, does it smell good.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
That's good.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. Means we're brought to you by Rouse's Markets. Working towards the weekend. About time to get to the weekend here. Seems like every day we look up and there's more LSU players leaving town. We're going to talk about that over the next 2 hours. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and plenty to do over the next couple of hours. Luke Johnson, just chatted with him. They're going to be at Saints practice here very shortly. So Luke's going to be with us in hour number 2, as will Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers. We'll talk LSU football and a little bit of basketball with Chris Blair as LSU gets ready to make the trip up to Frisco, just outside of Dallas, to play the SMU Mustangs. SEC schedule release was last night. I have a lot of reaction to that. Garrett Nussmeier declared he is coming back to LSU for a 5th and final season. That was right after we got off the air yesterday, so I've got my reaction to that. But we've got some breaking news. So to get to the breaking news, we'll start the same way we start every single day, with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Just got word about 15 minutes ago that Emery Jones, LSU right tackle for the past 3 seasons, has declared for the NFL draft. Now, Brian Kelly took to the microphone a couple of weeks ago and said, we're going to get some guys back that, some of our key players that would have potential to move on. And you start to hear the rumors, question whether Mason Taylor's going to stay or go, question whether Garrett Nussmeier is going to stay or go, question whether Emery Jones would stay or go. And you started to kind of feel like, well, if Brian Kelly's saying that in public, they're going to get kind of a haul back here. Harold Perkins' name came up there as well. And Emery Jones was one of those who was strongly rumored, I suggested on the air right here, that he would come back for a final season on the LSU offensive line, whether that meant another year at right tackle, whether that meant moving down to guard where he may play in the NFL, whether that meant moving over to left tackle where Will Campbell's vacating. Maybe he would come back. Well, we just, in the last 15 minutes, found out that's not going to be the case. So you look at this LSU offensive line. Will Campbell started 38 games at LSU at left tackle. Emery Jones started 36 at right tackle. That's some back-of-the-napkin math. That is 74 starts between those two guys in 36 games over 3 seasons where they were your bookend tackles. Will Campbell, of course, started the Florida State game as a true freshman. Emery Jones did not start that game. He started the next week and never came out of the lineup. He missed 1 game last year against Army with an injury, but played the rest of the way. That is a massive amount of experience and talent to lose. You figure both of those guys are probably going to go in the top 50 picks of this NFL draft. LSU has not had an offensive tackle go in the first round in decades. So this is a historic movement into the draft, but it also leaves a massive hole on the ends of your offensive line. And oh, by the way, Miles Frazier and Garrett Dellinger are out of eligibility. So you now have to essentially overhaul your entire offensive line. DJ Chester struggled at center this year. I don't think that is far-fetched to say. That does not mean that a redshirt freshman cannot develop into an elite-level player. He's got a lot of talent, and he was good enough to be tossed into multiple games as a true freshman and to play this year and start every game at center as a redshirt freshman. That's, I think, a positive sign more than a negative. But it still leaves you in a position now as you move into next football season where you are missing 4 starters on your offensive line that have all started for 3 seasons at LSU. That is no small chore to replace. So let's look at what LSU has on the roster currently entering this bowl game. And I would suggest that Will Campbell, who has already announced he's not playing in the bowl game. I would suggest Emery Jones probably won't play in the bowl game. Garrett Dellinger's coming off of an injury. Brian Kelly said yesterday that he's going to be cleared. Whether or not he plays in that game, I don't know. And then does Miles Frazier want to play another game at LSU? Who knows? You could be playing this bowl game without 4/5 of your offensive line. More back-of-the-napkin math. This is all I can do. That's 80% of your offensive line that you're going to be probably without in this bowl game. So what does that look like? Well, I'm not certain, but I can start to take some guesses. Tyree Adams was the sixth offensive lineman on this group. And by the way, I'm not just trying to map out LSU's offensive line for the Baylor game. We're talking about what the program looks like in the Baylor game and, much more importantly, beyond this Baylor game. Tyree Adams was the sixth offensive lineman. When they broke camp and went up to Vegas against Southern Cal, if any offensive lineman went down, Tyree Adams was going to go in. That includes DJ Chester at center. They would move Dellinger down to center, and Adams would have played guard. So no matter who went in, left tackle, left guard, right guard, center, no matter what, Tyree Adams was next up. We saw that enough times in camp to know that that was the case. I'm going to, for the time being, put him at left tackle. So you put Tyree Adams at left tackle. DJ Chester is your center. Paul Mabenga is your right guard. We've already seen that. And Weston Davis was working out at tackle. The 5-star true freshman was working out at tackle. And anyone can play in this game without risking a red shirt. So, candidly, I didn't even go back to look at how many games guys have played because I know for sure the Baylor game is not going to hurt anybody from a red shirt perspective. So, right now, that is four pieces. Adams at left tackle, Chester at center, Mabenga at right guard, and Weston Davis at right tackle. Could they move Cohen Eccles to center and move DJ Chester out to guard? Sure. And that's kind of what I think this may look like. Ethan Callaway is in the program, was a former 4-star recruit. Ori Williams was a 4-star recruit. Kyrie Lee was a 4-star recruit. Bo Bordelon's been in the program a little bit longer, and he's dressed out at tight end, so they do trust him to go in the game. But that's kind of what you're looking like on this offensive line. Those are really all your bodies. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys on the offensive line. You're thin and have no experience. Mabenga has started a couple of games. Chester started a season's worth. Nobody else has started a football game. So you're severely compromised in this Baylor game, but I'm more concerned with what this means moving forward. And now I look at this, and I had offensive tackle as a top 5 need. I did a segment on that last week, and I had it, I believe, third. It moves up significantly here. You still got to have wide receivers, and you still certainly got to get defensive end help, but you have to find probably, this sounds like a lot, probably 2 good starters on the offensive line that LSU needs. I had kind of mentally, and this is not based on any information, this is just kind of based on the rumor mill, and then Brian Kelly saying that folks are coming back. Maybe he was just talking about Nussmeier, and perhaps Perkins comes back, and those are the ones he's talking about. I don't know. But when he said that some more guys were coming back than you probably thought, I was going to Nussmeier, I was going to Perkins, and I was really going to Emery Jones as well. I thought he was going to come back. And now he's not. Now, they may have known that, and they're working hard in the transfer portal, but Brad Davis has brought in terms of numbers and star ratings, and honestly body types, because you go out there and you understand what Brian Kelly has done in his career on the offensive line. All the guys he churned into the NFL from Notre Dame with the Zach Martins and Mike McGlinchey's. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They've had just an incredible run of offensive linemen from Notre Dame going into the NFL. And you look at LSU, and he immediately has Will Campbell and Emery Jones, and you're going, okay, this guy really knows what he's doing on the offensive line. And so you go out there to spring ball and into fall camp, and you see all these offensive linemen, and there's a profile that Brian Kelly recruits to. He talked about this the first day he was on the job. He wants long, lean guys that are pretty athletic and grow into their frame. And you look at Will Campbell and Emery Jones, and you're like, okay, that checks out. And then they got Garrett Dellinger and developed him, and they brought Miles Frazier along as well. And I think all of those guys are going to be NFL draft picks. But they've got to restock this offensive line, and you're going to do it from a group of very, very unproven guys who had a lot of stars next to their name but haven't played at all. I need a 22-year-old left guard. I need a left tackle that has played in the ACC or the Big 12 that you can plug in and play. That's a non-negotiable at this point. LSU cannot go to Clemson next year, in my opinion, with an offensive line that has Tyree Adams at left tackle, DJ Chester at left guard, Cohen Eccles at center, Paul Mabenga at right guard, and Weston Davis at right tackle. That, to me, is a recipe for disaster early in the season in a loud environment. Like, they're all talented. Weston Davis was a 5-star. Paul Mabenga, 4-star. Cohen Eccles, 4-star. DJ Chester, 4-star. Tyree Adams, 4-star. Like, they're talented dudes, and they're big and tall and long and lean, but they haven't played. I need guys that have played. This is not an era anymore that you can depend on redshirt freshmen to go in there and be dudes. Like, you don't have to do that anymore. You go to the portal, you make it happen. And I'm assuming that Will Campbell made a nice chunk of change this year. I'm assuming Emery Jones made some cash this year. You free that up. You've got to move on and go get some guys. I don't know what the future holds for Ethan Callaway or Ori Williams or Kyrie Lee or Bo Bordelon, and I don't mean to dismiss that totally. And LSU's got a couple really good offensive linemen in this signing class. But again, I don't necessarily want to go throwing true freshmen right into the fire. They're on the road at Clemson. So, tough news for LSU from the outside looking at that. Maybe LSU knew this all along. Maybe this was a decision that Emery Jones just made based on negotiations with LSU's collective. I have no way of knowing. What I do know is that you now look at an offensive line that has 12 DJ Chester starts and 2 Maul Mabenga starts. That's 14 total, and your tackles just walked out with over 70. So it's a dire situation in terms of experience for LSU at offensive line, and it must be addressed in the transfer portal quickly. And I'm using some strong terms, and perhaps 4 years from now when I do this segment, having 4 more years of data points, I won't feel the same way because I just know, hey, you retool the whole roster in December and January every year anyway. And maybe that'll be commonplace at that point. It's not right now, so it's a little bit unsettling to look at LSU's depth chart on the offensive line and understand where things stand right now after watching what we had watched last year. It's daunting, but Emery Jones headed to the National Football League. That is our Genesis opening drive here on this Thursday. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Rouse's Markets. Download that Rouse's app. It makes life so much easier for you. You can do your grocery shopping digitally right there. Have your personal shopper go in, get your groceries. You just pull up to the curb, and they bring it right out to you. You're on your way. Time is tough, and time is tight right now for a lot of folks. Grocery shopping may not be in the cards as you're dealing with the holidays and shopping and family coming in and kids being out of school and all that. You just want to simplify your shopping. You can absolutely do that with the Rouse's app. There's a Rouse's location just about anywhere near you down here in South Louisiana. All right, when we come back, a little happier news. LSU got Garrett Nussmeier back. We'll talk about that coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. Whether it's whole home audio, your surround sound, or your outdoor area that you want to put some speakers in, whether it's your TV installation or that man cave you're trying to trick out to watch the games coming up, video surveillance in your security system, no matter what it is electronically that you're trying to get accomplished at your home, Audio Video Security Solutions is happy to help you out. I love the fact that every single day I can give you Mitchell Fisher's cell phone number. He owns the company right here in Baton Rouge, and he's going to be your point person to start this. Not just some minion down the line at some massive box store that may or may not show up on time. You're dealing with the owner, and his cell phone number is 225-439-7920. Again, 225-439-7920. You call Mitchell Fisher and tell him what you need. He comes out for that consultation, and they will get you taken care of, and I can speak personally to this. The customer service after the installation for us at the Palmer House has been absolutely phenomenal. Give them a call or check them out online, Audio Video Security Solutions. That's avssla.com, avssla.com.
When you can't rely on technology, you can rely on Mountain Cold Refreshment.
Dave's back on.
Coors Light. Choose chill.
Got chores that need some extra muscle, but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. and backed by the one-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktail. So come out for game day and let our team make you the MVP. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2640.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Markets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. We'll talk Saints with Luke Johnson coming up in the second hour. But I just opened with the news that Emery Jones will be moving on from LSU into the NFL draft. And best wishes to Emery. He and Will Campbell were just phenomenal for 2 years at LSU on those bookends. But we got the news yesterday. Some positive news for LSU in terms of players coming back when Garrett Nussmeier expressed his intention to come back. If you were listening to yesterday's show, I kind of read the tea leaves there and saw Garrett Nussmeier's Instagram story and saw the chair and the setting and all that. And I kind of went, they did something similar for Livy Dunn and Haley Bryant coming back to the gymnastics team for one more year. And it feels like the guys who are declaring for the draft are just getting a little Instagram graphic made and it's just being posted up there. I think this is more of a hey, look at me, I'm coming back, everybody needs to come to LSU, I'm taking control here. And then sure enough, about 3 hours later, Garrett Nussmeier released a video sitting in a chair and recited some scripture and said, hey, I'm coming back for one more year. And I do believe that was intentional by LSU. I don't know Garrett Nussmeier. I've spoken to him 10 or 12 times. I don't know if this was a deal that he wanted to do or if this is a situation where the coaching staff and those that are in charge of assembling the roster were like, hey, we need to get out and make a public relations statement here that the quarterback is coming back because that entices wide receivers, that entices offensive linemen, entices players that want to compete for championships, knowing that there's a quarterback in place for a fifth year that's done some really good things at the college level. I feel like that's why LSU did that yesterday. And I think the reaction from LSU fans has been overwhelmingly positive. There was a point there in the middle of November when LSU was struggling to win football games and when Garrett Nussmeier threw 3 interceptions against A&M and 2 more against Alabama, that people were a little cranky about the quarterback and the way he was playing and the offense and the offensive coordinator. And I get that. What I've learned over time in this business is when teams lose, never, in my experience, do fans – well, let me process this. When a team that fans perceive to be elite level programs, LSU's baseball program, LSU's football program that we deal with here, basketball on the men's side doesn't necessarily get tossed into this bucket. But when the baseball program and the football program have setbacks, it is almost never the fan base's reaction to go, man, just weren't quite good enough, but I think we're okay. Like, that's the way I, Hunt Palmer, generally look at things when I think it's appropriate. The fan base, generally speaking, has to get rid of the quarterback, has to go to the backup, has to go to the portal, has to fire the offensive coordinator, knows that the head coach will never get it done. Like, these are the reactions that happen every single time. And it's probably the vocal minority, but it's just the way I've experienced things in this chair, because I think some people don't operate this way. I think it's part of my responsibility to have a pulse as to what the fan base feels like. I think that allows me to speak to what they're feeling. It allows me to speak to what they're interested in. And I think losing touch with that would be a misstep. So I do pay attention to my Twitter mentions. I do pay attention to message boards, whether it's Tiger Droppings or Shay's over at On 3. I do pay attention to my friends and group texts and my family group texts, and just try to aggregate as much as I can about how the fan base kind of feels. And at one point in the middle of November, the fan base was disheartened by Garrett Nussmeier's play. I think it's fair to say that. My reaction has always been, man, like, this guy gives LSU a chance. He gives LSU a chance. You're talking about a guy who, against Ole Miss, one of the best defenses in America, threw for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. He made 3 fourth-down throws on the final drive that drove LSU down, including the game winner. He made the game-winning throw in overtime. I know he threw 2 interceptions in that game, and one of them was a terrible decision, and one of them was a tipped ball. But he threw for 337 and 3 touchdowns against one of the best defenses in college football. You're talking about a guy who, as of January 1st, will have produced the second most passing yards in LSU football history in a single season. I just have a hard time shrugging that off and saying, can we get to the next guy, please? It's just not that easy. Look at quarterback play around the SEC this year. Carson Beck dealt with a lot of struggles. Jackson Dart didn't get it done in the swamp. Quinn Ewers had his issues. He couldn't get over the hump against Georgia. I know that he was dealing with an injury, and I'll give him a little bit of a pass for that, but deal's the deal. Nico Iamaleava wasn't very good early in the season. He was a 5-star recruit. He went up to Fayetteville, was terrible. Like, nobody in the league stepped forward and was just brilliant start to finish. If we're going to sit here in Baton Rouge and compare every quarterback that breaks the huddle with Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels, it's going to be a miserable existence. It's okay to hold LSU to the highest standard. It's tough to tell every quarterback they need to be nearly flawless. Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels were nearly flawless. It's 2 of the greatest single seasons in SEC football history. Because it's right in our rearview mirror, it's so fresh to us, we feel like we can apply those type of standards, I think, at times. We need to kind of relax on that. Here's my thought on Garrett Nussmeier coming back to LSU. It gives LSU a real chance to play relevant football late into next year. It's a difficult schedule. We're going to talk about that coming up in the next segment. It's a difficult schedule. But Garrett Nussmeier, having been through the ringer one year, should make improvements. And if you tell me that once again he will throw for the second most yards in the history of LSU football, which he could, it's not like his wide receiver group this year was just outstanding. Let's see what his wide receiver group looks like next year. His offensive line is going to have to help him out. But if he can do that again and take those interceptions down from 5, 9, 11. Take those down from 11 to 7. Take 4 away. You've got a first-team all-league quarterback. Because if he takes 2 interceptions away from against Texas A&M and 1 away against South Carolina, which kind of looked bad, you're talking about a team that probably finishes with 2 SEC losses and is right on the outside of the playoff. The only game I have trouble reconciling is the Alabama game. And I get that that's an important game for LSU quarterbacks. You got to play better in that game. No question. I'm not here to duck that at all. But I'm curious how much of that was LSU's inability to run, how much of it was the rain, which that day was just miserable, because that was clearly the worst that LSU's passing game looked all year. And there were some quarterbacks that did some good things against Alabama. And LSU just looked completely inept. LSU did not look completely inept against Texas A&M until the last 20 minutes of the game. And that the game had changed. A&M was coming at LSU with that really good pass rush, and that crowd was on fire, and Nussmeier played very poorly. But he played great in the first half. Great in the first half. Great. That touchdown to Mason Taylor on the fade route was exceptional. LSU was precise. They were controlling the ball. They were controlling the game. He made one terrible mental error, and then the house of cards fell. The defense couldn't handle it, and Nussmeier made two terrible plays. He actually led one really good drive in that game to bring LSU right back into it. But I didn't think he was terrible at Florida. LSU didn't score enough points, but he didn't throw an interception, made some really good plays on third down. He ran the ball a little bit in that game. Like, I thought he was bad against Alabama. Maybe that was the rain. Maybe that was the defense. I'm not sure. But the point I'm trying to make here is this guy finished in the top 3 or 4 in every passing statistic in the SEC. He threw for the second most yards in the history of the program in a single season. He's going to be a fifth-year quarterback with a great knowledge of the game, experience of going through the conference, and the ability to grow under this staff for another year. You're probably not going to hear me a lot of the time talk about the jump Joe Burrow made in his final year and Jaden Daniels made in his final year, because once again, I just don't know how fair it is to continue to compare quarterbacks to Heisman winners.
Also, just the situations around those quarterbacks, too. The receivers that both of those guys had compared to what Garrett Nussmeier will likely have next season. No doubt.
But I think they can find another Kyron Lacey. I think they can find another C.J. Daniels. Mason Taylor's really good, but I think Trey'Dez Green is going to be a factor next year in some way, shape, or form. Not going to look like Mason Taylor because I just don't think he's going to be able to block like that, but he's going to be a factor in the pass-catching game. And you've got Aaron Anderson back, and I'm thrilled that Garrett Nussmeier's coming back. And I think that he gives LSU a fighting chance when he goes out there, because on a given day, Garrett Nussmeier can throw for 337 and 3 touchdowns against just about anybody on a given day. They've got a lot of pieces to fill in around him. I did the entire opening segment on the offensive line. And they got to fix that in a hurry. And they got to find wide receivers, and they got to find a tight end. Really, the only thing they've got on offense that I feel great about is Garrett Nussmeier, Caden Durham, and then the 2 running backs that are coming in. If you tell me that Caleb Jackson comes back and those 2 guys come in, I'll think LSU's just fine at running back talent-wise. But they've got to work on the offensive line. They got to work on tight end. They got to work at wide receiver. Quarterback, they're in good shape. I think they're in really good shape. And if you dismiss that, we just disagree. That's okay. It's what passions make what makes this whole thing fun. But I think that it's huge news that LSU could get a guy back that could throw for 332 against Vanderbilt and a touchdown. They can throw for 405 against Texas A&M and 2 touchdowns. They can throw for 337 against Ole Miss. They can throw for 352 on UCLA. They can go on the road down 17-0 and throw for 285 and 2 scores against South Carolina and that pass rush. Like, it's not nothing. This is a big deal for LSU to get him back. And now they've got to fill in the pieces around Garrett Nussmeier to try to get back to the playoff. If they can get back to the playoff, they're going to have to navigate a brand new schedule. I'm going to break down that schedule, including what I see as LSU's path to the college football playoff. We'll do that coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Make LeVare's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters this season. You can watch all the games on their giant screen TVs, tackle the area's best game day food and beverages with all your friends, and get in on the basketball and football action all winter long with Penn Play and ESPN Bet. If you're looking for a place to wager, you're looking for an app to wager on, ESPN Bet is a fantastic spot to place your bets. It's the online sportsbook that is now live in Louisiana. Score big this season at LeVare's Baton Rouge, however you want to play. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 for help.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million-mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you. Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram can get you in a new 2025 Ram 1500 truck with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off the newly designed Ram 1500 truck. All new Bayou Automotive vehicles come with a complimentary 7-year powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
All right, the Southeastern Conference made a huge TV show out of the schedule release last night, as they do. Both football leagues, college and the NFL, have been masters of creating year-round interest in television events out of a lot of different things. And the schedule release was that last night. I'm sitting there kind of watching it as it goes by, and it's a little bit difficult to follow because you're trying to pay attention to what LSU's doing, and then they're bringing you every single game, and you can kind of get bogged down in it. But I took the LSU schedule and I put up a story on LouisianaSports.net that kind of broke it down and looked at a path for LSU to make the college football playoff. Because what do we find out this year? That the schedule is a massive part of the college football playoff. That kind of goes without saying, but we certainly learned that. It's not the strength of the schedule. It's the ease with which you can get through your schedule to a point where you can make the playoff. If you're an SEC team, we talked about this in August. We were correct. 10-2 is what you needed. 10-2 is what you needed. Georgia got to 10-2. They got them in the SEC championship game. They were going to get in anyway. Tennessee got to 10-2. They're in. Texas 11-1. Lost their second game. They're in. 3-loss teams: South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama, out. And my contention is if you're in the Southeastern Conference or the Big Ten, and you can get to 10-2, you are in. It does not matter how you get to 10 wins. You can beat 10 top 10 teams, or you can beat 10 teams no one's ever heard of. Don't believe me? Indiana just did it. It doesn't matter how you lose 2 games. You can lose to an awful team. You can lose to good teams. Notre Dame lost to atrocious teams. they're in. They got 11-1. It just matters that you can get to 10-2. And that's why LSU's season opening game at Clemson is stupid. It's a stupid game to play. Because it doesn't matter if you beat Clemson. You have to get to 10-2. But that's where LSU will open, and we'll kind of weave through this thing, and I'll tell you what the most likely roadmap looks like for LSU. Week 2, they'll play Louisiana Tech. That was a 5-7 team this year under Sonny Cumbie. They lost to Arkansas 35-14. They also got absolutely hammered by that was later on. But Louisiana Tech 5-7 this year, lost at Arkansas. LSU in Week 3 will play the Florida Gators in Tiger Stadium, and that game looks a lot different than it did a couple months ago. All of a sudden, DJ Lagway's back, Billy Napier's back. Things seem to be moving in the right direction in Gainesville. They finished the season strong, so that's going to be a big deal in early September. It's going to be really hot, and LSU and Florida will get after it on September the 13th. And then LSU will play Southeastern Louisiana on September the 20th, which is basically a bye week. Before September 27th, they travel to Ole Miss. Now, I can't tell you right now what Ole Miss is going to look like. My contention, if I am Lane Kiffin, is I go to the Grove Collective and I say, look, y'all have seen Ole Miss football play in the SEC for 3 decades. In this iteration of the SEC. Not the 50s, not the 60s, this iteration, the last 30 years. There was never a team that could take on the most powerful program in the sport, the Georgia Bulldogs, and dismantle them 28-10 until you sunk $16 million into this football team going to get first-round picks out of the transfer portal. That is proof this works. It is my fault, Lane Kiffin's fault, that we didn't win 10 games, but we can do it as long as you spend that money. If we don't, it's going to look like Houston Nutt. It's going to look like Ed Ogeron. It's going to look like David Cutcliffe, Sans Eli Manning. It's going to look like Matt Luke. You can go down and down the list. You're the runt. You've never been to Atlanta. You can get better if you spend a bunch of money. We'll see if they do that. But they got to replace Walter Nolan and Prince Umamielen and Trey Amos on the defense. They got to replace Trey Harris on the offense, Jackson Dart on the offense. They didn't really have a running game this year. I think Ole Miss is going to be good next year because I think they're going to spend a bunch of money in the transfer portal. They started with Deshaun Womack today. But you never know what that's going to be. Any way you slice it, September, including August the 30th, which is when LSU plays Clemson, but we'll shoehorn that into September. You've got at Clemson, Florida at home, at Ole Miss. That is a bear. You've got your bye week. Then you've got South Carolina inside Tiger Stadium. That's generally one you would chalk up as a W, South Carolina. But Lenora Sellers played great football. Looks like Shane Deemer's doing some good things. They lose their offensive coordinator, but it looks promising in Columbia. They're going to have to replace Kyle Kennard, but Dylan Stewart's coming back to rush the passer. That's going to be probably a quality football team coming into Baton Rouge on October the 11th. Then you're at Vanderbilt, and I think Clark Lee's done an amazing job. Coach of the year, absolutely fantastic work by Clark Lee this year. I don't think Diego Pavia is going to win his suit, and I don't think Vanderbilt's going to win 6 games next year. And I think LSU is going to go to Vanderbilt and win that game in Nashville, and if they don't, we'll have a completely different conversation. But for the purposes of this conversation, you got to go to Nashville and beat freaking Vanderbilt. I've said this for a long time. There are no 2 better words in SEC football scheduling than at Vanderbilt. Playing the worst team in the league in front of a half your partisan stadium.
They're not the worst anymore, Hunt.
They're going to be.
Okay.
In the next 10 years, they'll be the worst team 5, at least. And you get to have a nice trip for your fan base to go to Nashville and have some fun. So LSU gets Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. They should win that game. And then Texas A&M comes to LSU, and I don't know what that team's going to look like either. My guess is with the resources they've got, and I trust Mike Elko's a pretty damn good coach, I think they'll be a good team next year. I don't think they'll compete for the SEC championship. I think their schedule's pretty tough, and we'll talk about that later on. But I think they'll be pretty good. That's your 3-game stretch between the byes: South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M. Then after the bye, you've got Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Going to have a new quarterback. We'll see what the talent of that roster looks like. You got Arkansas coming to Tiger Stadium. You got Western Kentucky in that non-conference game at the end of the schedule that LSU didn't play this year because they played UCLA on the front end. But you've got Western Kentucky in Tiger Stadium on the 22nd, right before Thanksgiving. And then you've got at Oklahoma in that return trip for the season finale. So, this is the way I break this schedule down, and I'll probably feel the same way when we start talking about it in July, and I'll probably feel the same way about it in August when we start to kick this thing off. But here's how I think LSU can get to the college football playoff. It's the most reasonable way. Like, you wouldn't have said for Alabama previously that they needed to beat Georgia and lose at Vanderbilt, okay? So things happen over the course of a season. But we're talking about the most predictable method for LSU to make the college football playoff. I think it starts in that brutal month of September that we talked about, that's at Clemson, Louisiana Tech, Florida in Tiger Stadium, Southeastern in Tiger Stadium, at Ole Miss. You need to go 4-1 in those games. The best one to lose would be at Clemson because it's not an SEC game, but you need to go 4-1 through 5. That's going to be very difficult to do. But basically, you've got to get 2 of at Clemson, Florida, and at Ole Miss. If you get to that point and you're 4-1, you get to the first bye week on October the 4th. Then you play 3 games for your next bye week. South Carolina at home, at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M at home. You got to win all 3. You got to win all 3 of those games. South Carolina had a good team this year. Texas A&M's got a lot of resources, good defensive coach. We'll see if Marcel Reed's the quarterback or not, but those 2 games are at home. And you need to take care of your business inside Tiger Stadium and then go to Nashville and beat the Doors. At that point, you're 7-1, and that's a lot to ask. But I have to ask you to be 7-1 because I'm not in position to sit right here and tell you that LSU is going to come off that next bye week and go to Tuscaloosa and win. They could. South Carolina almost did it this year. They could. Teams have gone in there and won recently. But I'm not ready to tell you that because the last 2 times LSU went to Bryant-Denny Stadium and won, the 2 best quarterbacks in the history of the school. I'm sorry, the 2 best teams I have seen in my lifetime, 19 and 11, had to go do it. So I'm not ready to sit here and pick LSU to win that game. So I'm counting that as kind of a loss right now. And then the end of the schedule, I believe, is very favorable. Why? Because you get Arkansas in Tiger Stadium on the 15th of November. I believe there's a real chance that Sam Pittman's not even there at that time.
We thought that this year too.
True, but they got saved by the Tennessee game. And he went 6-6. If he doesn't beat Tennessee, he's going to get fired. But listen to this. You have Luke Haas, your tight end, has already gone to the transfer portal. Like, LSU's losing, but got a lot of guys to the transfer portal. They're backups. Same thing's happening in a lot of different places. Arkansas' starting tight end is gone. He's got a year left. 6 scholarship defensive backs have moved on. Isaiah Satania, their number 2 wide receiver, has moved on. Oh, by the way, Andrew Armstrong, their number 1 wide receiver, is gone. He's out of eligibility. Landon Jackson is gone, who was their best edge player. He's going to the draft. Like, they're losing everything. And I just don't think Sam Pittman can keep that together. This is my prediction for Arkansas. I think they lose at Ole Miss early in their season. I think they lose to Notre Dame in Fayetteville early in their season. I think they lose at Tennessee. I think they lose to Auburn. That puts them at 3-5 with Mississippi State coming to Fayetteville. If they lose that game to go to 3-6, he's done. Maybe at 4-5, they keep him through the bye and he plays LSU the next week. But I think that there's a real chance that he's not there. At the very least, the writing's on the wall in Fayetteville at that point, and that's a big boost for LSU as they come to Tiger Stadium. Then you play Western Kentucky, and I don't think Brent Venables will be there when LSU gets there at the end of the season. You think he's going to turn this thing around? Jackson Arnold's moved on. They don't really have a quarterback. Here's the Oklahoma schedule from October the 11th on. Listen to this, Beck. From October the 11th on, this is what it is. Texas and Dallas, at South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, bye, at Alabama, Missouri, LSU. Yeah. I cannot see a way he survives that. Now, I said the exact same thing about Billy Napier this year, and they beat Ole Miss, and they beat LSU, and they beat Florida State. So I'm not telling you that I'm right. I'm just telling you what I think. I think the last 2 SEC games LSU plays will be against lame duck coaches or fired coaches. And you got to win those 3 after Alabama. So the way this thing gets done is you go 4-1 against Clemson, Louisiana Tech, Florida, Southeastern, and at Ole Miss. You sweep South Carolina, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M between the byes. 2 of those are at home. If you lose to Alabama, you beat Arkansas, Western Kentucky, and Oklahoma. That gets you to 10-2.
That begs the question though of where are your what are you gonna stand on in terms of your good wins?
You don't need them. You don't need any good wins.
You don't.
Indiana has no good wins. SMU has no good wins. No one needs any good wins. That's the point. You need less losses. The only thing that matters is less losses, which is why playing Clemson is ridiculous. You play Furman, you play Rice, you play North Tech, you don't play Clemson. It just doesn't make any sense. No one needs good. Who is in the playoff off good wins? Who did Texas beat?
It's true.
No one in the playoff has any good wins. Who's Penn State's good win? They're in the playoff.
Oregon's got some good wins.
They do, and they're the 1 seed. The only thing that matters is don't lose. That's what we've been told. So, that's the nature. That's the way this thing shakes out. I think it's unlikely that LSU goes 10-2, like I'm telling you like this, because they got a lot of holes to fill. But I'll have a better feel for that in 3 weeks as to what happens. Let's close out hour number 1, and we come back next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Genesis offers a luxury experience at a reasonable price. Check them out online, GenesisofBatonRouge.com. The entire line, from the sedans all the way up through the SUVs, they've been awarded the IIHA Top Safety Pick. Some were Top Safety Picks Plus. When you go to the dealership, you're going to feel like a guest, not necessarily like a customer. The vibes in there are phenomenal. It feels like a 4-star hotel lobby when you're in the showroom. Got this rock waterfall that's in there that's real soothing. They got it's quiet, and they've got a clean service aisle. They got an incredible coffee machine, all these snacks, and you can grab one of their brand ambassadors, walk the lot, and see what you'd like to get behind. And every single Genesis that you purchase on the lot there is going to come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. They're airline and PQ. GenesisofBatonRouge.com. That's Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram can get you in a new 2025 Ram 1500 truck with $15,000 off MSRP. $15,000 off the newly designed Ram 1500 truck. All new Bayou Automotive vehicles come with a complimentary 7-year powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
There it is, the extra mile. On the border of expected and extraordinary. For those willing to go further. Like vans customized for work or play. With safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Saver game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktail. So come out for...
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
All right, Beck, let's play a little game here. Just give me a yes or no. Can this team win the national championship?
All right.
Oregon.
Yes.
Georgia.
Yes.
Boise.
No.
Arizona State.
No.
Texas.
Yes.
6th seed is Penn State.
Yes.
Yes, that was a difference for mine. I did not have them as a yes. Notre Dame.
No.
I have them as a no as well. Ohio State.
Yes.
Tennessee.
Yes.
Indiana.
No.
SMU.
No.
Clemson.
No.
So we only differ on Penn State. I have them in the no. I think there are 5 teams that can win it. I think there are 7 that cannot make it.
I just think Penn State, I think they can because their path is to the semifinals is pretty easy. I mean, they play SMU and then they'll play Boise. And not to say that I think that'll be an easy game. I do actually think Boise State is pretty good, but I'll expect Penn State to probably be a 4 or 5 point favorite over Boise in that game.
I am fascinated from afar at one particular aspect of this college football playoff. And it is Ryan Day and his relationship with Ohio State. Because, in my opinion, and I don't have a chief rival. I don't have one. So I can't put my feet squarely in the shoes of Ohio State's fans. But he is 47-1 against the other Big Ten teams and has lost 4 straight to Michigan. And to me, that's not that big a deal. If I'm guaranteed to beat all the other teams, and I'm always going to be 11-1, 12-0, I'm willing to take my chances. That tells me the roster's good enough, and that tells me that I'm knocking on the door. But they're so caught up on this Michigan thing that it feels like he's almost coaching for his job in the playoff. And it's a really difficult draw because Tennessee is good, and then they got to go back. They got to go and play Oregon again out in the Rose Bowl. And I realize if he gets through those 2 games and he's got to play Texas or Arizona State or Clemson, like I think they'll have forgotten about November. But if he loses one of those 2 games, like then they circle back around, I feel like, to Michigan. And it's just hard for me to put myself in those shoes because I guess theoretically I could do the same thing with LSU and Alabama over those years, but LSU wasn't beating everyone else.
Yeah.
They weren't beating Alabama like Michigan's not beating Ohio State, but they were losing to Florida every once in a while. They were losing to Arkansas every once in a while. They were losing to Ole Miss every once in a while. Like they were losing to A&M. It's just not the same. And I just feel like they should be able to separate those 2 things and feel like one of them is really good. And instead, they just boil everything down to the one stupid game right after Thanksgiving and feel like that's the coach's only job. And I just can't get behind it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't compute with me either, for the same reason. But that's one of the biggest rivalries in college football, and when you keep losing that game, that's what a lot of people remember.
That game now takes on less importance than ever.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they lost it, and they already had another loss, and they're still in the playoff. So if we were in the BCS era, and you simply couldn't beat them, and that meant you were never going to get to play for a championship, well, then I would change my tune. But Ohio State fans, like I follow a couple of Barstool Ohio State fans. That's like my only window into their fan base. And they're all just like, bleh, this game's stupid. Who cares about playing Tennessee? We can't beat Michigan. And I'm like, what? Michigan is going to whatever bowl no one's ever heard of. They got to get a brand new roster, a new coaching staff, and you're in the playoff. Who cares about Michigan? They just can't turn that switch.
Yeah.
But we want, like next week we'll start to get into like the matchups of the games and who we think's going to win the national championship and all that kind of stuff. But for right now, it's just kind of like looking at that from the outside is fascinating to me. I don't know exactly how I feel about that Tennessee-Ohio State game yet. I will get to it, but if you can't score on Michigan's defense, Tennessee can do some damage to you. Now, Georgia lit them up, and I don't know if Will Howard's good enough to do that or not, but that's probably the most fascinating of the early games.
Yeah, I think so.
If we're assuming Clemson sucks, which is what most people, relatively speaking, think.
I think Indiana and Notre Dame will be interesting. I don't really. It's funny because it's both of these teams have no good wins, pretty much.
Yes, that's correct.
So
Notre Dame won at Kyle Field. I'll give them a hat tip for that. It was a different team, and they played Connor Wigman. But that's a 4-loss A&M team. So that's if that's what you're hanging your hat on. Plus beating like USC and whatever else. But goes back to the last segment. Doesn't matter who you beat. Just matters that you win. And that's not the best way to crown a champion, but it's certainly where we sit now. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Rouse's Markets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Speaking of those New Orleans Saints, we're going to be talking about them after Sports Center. Look for a stocking stuffer. Rouse's gift card might work pretty well. You don't buy one of those Rouse's locations, make that happen today. We'll pause for Sports Center, as we said. Back with Luke Johnson talking Saints. You're watching and listening to a Thursday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Look, safety's a big deal in the bathroom, especially as folks age. And if you're concerned about a loved one in your life potentially having a hazardous situation in the bathroom, slipping and falling, doing some damage, mitigate that the best you can. You can never completely mitigate it, but mitigate it the best you can. David Duvall and his team can put in non-slip floors. They can put guardrails, handrails around slippery areas. They can put a walk-in tub for convenience and safety. They can do a shower that has benches in it that makes things a little less hazardous. All these things are things that David Duvall and his team do all the time over at One Bath and Closets. If you're interested in hearing about that, get that free consultation. Check them out, OneBathAndClosets.com. David and his team will help you from the start to the finish of that project. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online at OneBathAndClosets.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps are held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an...
Now, the Hunt Palmer
Sports Center.
I'm Doug Brown. The University of North Carolina introduces new head coach Bill Belichick today. At 72, he's now the oldest active coach in FBS. So after all his success, why is he still working?
My dad told me this: when you love what you do, it's not work. I love what I do. I love coaching. I love the interaction with the players. I love building a team, working with the assistants, game planning, the game itself. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones, but they're all learning experience and working with young kids who, with the energy, enthusiasm to want to be good, to want to be successful. It's great every day to wake up and come into that environment.
Bill Belichick. ESPN's Pete Thamel reports former Florida and Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen will be the new head coach at UNLV. He's expected to get a 5-year deal. Week 15 in the NFL kicks off tonight in Santa Clara with the 6-7 49ers hosting the 7-6 Rams. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reports the 49ers will activate Dre Greenlaw for his season debut tonight. He tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl 10 months ago.
Hey, it's Evan Cohen. Coming up Friday, we'll continue to react to the fallout of Bill Belichick deciding to coach North Carolina and bypassing a return to the NFL. It's Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Boy, does it smell good.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
That's good.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Rouse's, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Let's talk some Saints to start hour 2. We'll head out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Luke Johnson covers the Saints for The Advocate, joins us now. Luke, how we doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
It is our pleasure. Derek Carr, your thoughts on his future over the next 5 weeks?
Yeah, look, I think that everything that's come out so far about it has been generally positive, just within the idea of him potentially playing again this year. They are still technically, at least publicly, holding out hope that he will play, or that he could potentially play this weekend. I think that's very unlikely. He's got to clear the concussion protocol first, and then they got to see if his hand can even handle a little bit of football. Even though it's his non-throwing hand, you still have to do a lot as a quarterback with both of your hands. He's got to be able to hand off with his left hand. He's got to be able to take a snap. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen this week. I would really highly doubt it would happen the next week. But I think there's a decent chance that he could suit up for like the last 2 games of the season.
Saints have not announced a starter in his place. Is that by design or because you don't think they're quite certain?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the answer Darren Rizzi gave yesterday to like that exact question. Somebody just put it point blank, like, are you not naming a starter because you don't want the Commanders to know, or because you don't know? And he just said yes. So like I think they have an idea. I think they know who they want to roll with, but they're going to let it kind of play out this week. And maybe whoever's number 2 in the pecking order can change some minds. I mean, I'd be surprised, but yeah. I personally think it's going to be Jake Haener. They haven't really gotten to see what he can do in a starting role yet. It's been kind of a small sample size for him. The most snaps he's played in a game, I think, is 26. And most of the other games, it was like 7 snaps, 5 snaps, 1 pass attempt, 3 pass attempts. So give him a chance where they're game planning around him. He's not going into as bad a situation as Spencer Rattler did his 3 starts. He's got his full offensive line. He doesn't have Chris Olave or Rashid Shaheed or Taysom Hill, but I think MVS has played well. I think some of the other receivers have played well. The tight ends have been stepping up. So you should be able to get a good look at him if he's your guy. It still might be Spencer Rattler, but I think that's part of the calculus here. Like, let's see what we got in assuming Derek Carr is not playing.
Why do you think it was Spencer Rattler the first time?
I think it was Spencer, because there's a lot of really tantalizing traits with him. And when you were kind of building a game plan around a quarterback and what he can do, I think there's a lot of stuff about Spencer Rattler that excites you. You know, you can put a lot of stuff in the playbook because he's just a very gifted player. I just think, like I said, the other stuff around him was just really not good. And it's not saying that he was going to be a superstar if they had their full complement of offensive weapons or anything, but the guy got sacked 14 times in 3 games. He was thrown to a really depleted receiver core where really they were relying on young guys, rookies, undrafted rookie free agents to step into those big roles. Whereas now you have guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, you've got Dante Pettis, you got veteran receivers in those roles. I think it made sense in hindsight. And I think it would make sense to see what he could do in round 2. Now that he's had some chances to learn from it and get a little bit better situation around you. But the fact of the matter remains that they really don't exactly know what they have in Haener yet. So I think that's probably where they're going to roll.
Who do you think's
making a long-winded way of answering the question?
Yeah, who do you think's making that call ultimately?
That's a good question. I would think ultimately that call goes down to the coaching staff, right? And really that's Clint Kubiak and Darren Rizzi kind of making that call together. I would be surprised if it's kind of coming from up high, because if I were these guys, I don't know if any of them say I feel really comfortable about their status with the team next year, right? Even Mickey Loomis, who's been here forever. I don't know if you can say for sure that he's going to be back. So is Mickey really going to be we need that guy there? I mean, Darren Rizzi is obviously coaching for his head coaching career here. I think if he wants a guy who thinks he gives them the best chance to win, he's got to roll with that guy. I think that's more than likely, uninformed here, speculating. I think that's more than likely that who is making the call at who is under center.
How realistic do you think it is that Darren Rizzi becomes the next head coach of the Saints? I know you wrote an awesome story on him from last week up there in his roots in New Jersey, but how realistic do you find that at this point?
I mean, a lot less now that Carr's out.
Yeah.
I mean, or assuming Carr's out. I think that's it's going to be a lot tougher for him to really go on a run and wow some people here. I think he's done some really nice things. Look, they're 3-1 since he took over, and they were coming off a 7-game losing streak. I think he's proved that he needs to be considered, right? Especially if you're talking about maybe blowing up some things next year, having a really young team. I think Rizzi has shown an ability to build a culture quickly. But it's going to be harder for him to make some statement wins with some really big teams coming up on the horizon. Commanders are in the playoff race. Packers are in the playoff race. And really make a statement if you don't have your starting quarterback and your backup isn't throwing to the top 2 receivers, and you don't have your most dynamic offensive player in Taysom Hill, and your defense has been struggling. I just think it's going to be really, really hard for him to make a strong case over these last 4 weeks.
Were you surprised the Saints couldn't really run the ball in New York?
Very. And I went back and looked at, the Giants have a terrible run defense. I think they were ranked 26 in the NFL going into that game. And then they were also playing without their best defensive player in Dexter Lawrence, who's a monster in the run game. So you figured they could make something happen there. What I think the Giants did, which is smart, and I don't understand why more people haven't done this year, is they basically just copied the Eagles' game plan, right? They don't have Jalen Carter in the middle to wreck things, and their linebackers aren't as good, but they've got good players on the edge. They kind of played that wide 5-man front a lot. And this is something that Clint Kubiak's going to have to figure out is when teams take away your fastball, you gotta be able to throw the changeup, And he's really just out there trying to Aroldis Chapman his way through a game, just throwing heat all the time, and it didn't work. And when their run game doesn't work, their offense as a whole has not worked. So, that's if he is back next year, which is, obviously a question mark. That's an area where he's got to improve, because if it's that easy to take away one really critical part of their offense, and everything just kind of crumbles like a house of cards after that, and then you need to find a changeup off that.
How do you feel like the Saints handled Jaden Daniels? I've seen him play in person before. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's all right, huh? And also feels like he was built in a lab to just eviscerate this Saints defense. So not really feeling good about their chances this weekend. I was talking with some other reporters. We were trying to set an over/under on his rushing yardage this week. I don't know if the limit exists, man. He could run for 120 yards this week, and I'd just be completely unsurprised. Tall task for these guys. I think you could see this coming from a mile away. This is going to be a huge challenge. And, this is something they've struggled to do over the years, is play these mobile quarterbacks. I mean, Drew Lock, of all people, ran for 60 yards on them last week.
Yeah.
It's just, it would be like the upset of the century if they hold him under 50 yards. Unless the Commanders just beat the brakes off him and Jaden doesn't have to run around.
We'll see. Enjoy some football in the Dome on Sunday. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Luke.
Sounds good, buddy. See ya.
He's by Luke Johnson on Twitter. You can follow him over there at The Advocate. Does a great job with the Saints. He's with us every single Thursday. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Rouse's Markets. I mentioned this at the end of hour number 1, but wanted to do so again. Think about a stocking stuffer. How about a Rouse's gift card? The Rouse is all over the place, so whoever you're buying that gift for is within shouting distance of a Rouse's. You can get on by, you can get your groceries for yourself, and you can get that stocking stuffer of a Rouse's gift card while you are there. Fantastic. Folks, what? Free groceries. That works for me. It works for most people. Rouse's would love to help you out with that, so get on by a Rouse's location near you and make that happen here in the coming weeks. We'll take a time out. Come back with Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Neil and Melissa have been running Boudreaux's Electrical for 40 years, giving folks in South Louisiana the peace of mind to know when the power goes out, they're protected with that home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Look, they've got more than 10 technicians available at a given time here in South Louisiana. So if they, while monitoring your generator remotely, which they do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sense that there's a mechanical issue, whether it just happened over the course of the machine trying to work, or the kids were out in the front yard and somebody bashed into it playing football, one way or another, if something happened, they'll know about it because they were monitored that remotely. They'll send a technician out to make sure things are running smoothly. You don't want a ton of folks coming over for the Christmas holidays and then the power going out. That's no good. Get that Generac home standby generator put in from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. They've had the same phone number for 40 years. It's 985-397-1562. 985-397-1562. If you're thinking, well, I live in the 225, 985, well, they got a location here in the 225 as well. It's 39389 in Gonzales, but I give you the easy way each and every day. And that's, of course, BoudreauxElectrical.com. Get that Generac home standby generator installed today. It's Boudreaux's Electric at BoudreauxElectrical.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
At Atmos Energy, our Smart Choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats, and weatherization upgrades. Together, we're fueling our energy future.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Wall-to-wall TVs mean you'll see every touchdown in HD. Place your bets and feel the thrill of every play with our DraftKings Sportsbook. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared toward seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
I did an exercise earlier today when I was sitting down at my desk, and I just went through the new schedules for all the teams in the SEC, and I just wrote down some things that were interesting to me. Including a couple of Saturdays that are just absolutely loaded with fantastic football. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the next segment here. Just some non-LSU SEC scheduling things that I found quite interesting, because everybody that had the schedule one way this year has it flipped next year in terms of home and away. So I found a few things interesting. We'll get to all of that moving forward. But first, let's chat with our guy Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, joins us on the Jim's Firearms Hotline as he does every single Thursday. Chris, how are you?
Great, Hunt. Hope you're doing well.
Doing quite well. Doing real well. Looking forward to the game coming up on Saturday against SMU. But just curious, some football things first from you. Your reaction to Garrett Nussmeier declaring that he'll come back for another year.
Excited to see that. I'm sure like everybody else, but I kind of felt that way. I mean, I didn't have any inside information, obviously, but I just felt like, with 13 starts under his belt and accomplishing what he did, and then trying to correct some of the mistakes and develop a little farther based on, his father understanding development, probably more so than anybody else. I really felt like that's the move he would make. And like I said, once it was official yesterday, I think like everybody else, you're excited to have that piece back of the offense.
And they'll travel to the Texas Bowl to take on Baylor. We'll talk about that kind of moving forward. But I wanted to spend some time on basketball today. We kind of got our first look at LSU's quote-unquote new-look front court without Jalen Reed on Sunday. Of course, Tigers lost their junior forward for the year. And I was impressed with Damian Collins. You were watching courtside. What did you think?
Well, you got a message from me. I think they're midway through the second half. That that was the thing I was most excited about was, you're replacing a guy that you pretty much could pencil in, at least what we'd seen in the early part of the season, 8 to 10 points and 7 to 8 rebounds. And, you were going to have to fill that void with guys who certainly have the ability. We just haven't seen it yet. And instead of, Matt and Coach McMahon having to ask one guy to do so, I think he's got a pretty good, if you're going to have this situation happen, I think the silver lining is he's got 2 or 3 that, can give you that and then some, offensively on the glass. And, Damian Collins now kind of coming into his own, he was highly touted coming out of high school, obviously started his career at Kentucky and was behind a pretty big and pretty good 5 while he was there. But you're starting to see, he had the little mid-range jump shot. He certainly wanted to take a couple of threes. And while I don't want to see that too often this year, a couple of blocks, and again, along with him and Corey Chest, who's an absolute beast on the glass, I think by committee, if you can keep that up, it just takes a ton of pressure off, Cam Carter and the rest of the backcourt to have to score 21, 25 points a game. And when you look at the win this past time out against Florida Gulf Coast, that's kind of what you saw. You had Damian leading the way with 18. You had 5 guys in double figures, and it wasn't as if Cam, had and Sears had to carry the load and score 40 or 50 points combined. Now they're going to need to score. Don't get me wrong. That's you can't count on that every time out. But I just like the fact that those guys are able to come in and not have to be the guy that has to play Damian Collins 36 minutes a game and hope that he can get you 12 and 8 every night. So again, I like what I saw. On top of the fact, and I sound like a broken record, this team is still committed to playing defense.
No question. And I think, look, this team we knew was going to lean on Jordan Sears and Cam Carter to score a lot. And then when you take out what was probably going to be their third leading scorer, you understand that there's a lot of points that need to be dispersed and some help that's got to be given to those guys. You talked about Collins, you talked about Chess doing the dirty work, but they're leaning on Victorious Miller far, far harder than I thought they would have as of 6 weeks ago. What have you seen from him?
Well, one thing about BJ, and I say this because I enjoy being around him, he's full of confidence. He exudes confidence. He came over before the Florida State game, and I said, "Hey, by the way, BJ, good job. You're averaging 15 points a game over the last 3." And he goes, "Yeah, you got it." So I was like, "All right, I like that." But yeah, I'm a little surprised too, not because I didn't think he, had the ability, but they are leaning on him for, minutes, for points, and production. And one of the other things, and I come back to defense again, every time I've talked to Victorious and talk about his mid-range jump shot, because to me, I think he's, that's one of the lost arts in college basketball. It's either at the rim or from three-point land, and BJ's got a really solid, 8 to 15-foot jump shot. And he said, "Hey, I got to play defense, though. I can get those jump shots, but coach is not going to put me on the floor if I'm not dedicated to defense." So while he has this air of confidence, he knows he's got to get the work done. And I think that's a great combination, especially for a true freshman.
I'd imagine more of your time kind of around the team would come in traveling. They haven't traveled a lot, and you didn't go to the Greenbrier, so I kind of get that. But I would imagine at this point in the calendar that it would be a pretty confident group. They've had one setback, but they've won some impressive games. They've had some impressive comebacks. And what's the air that you're sensing around the team?
They push each other, and in this day and age, there's times where you're bringing in new players, young players, and you look at the starting 5 to start the season. You had one returning Tiger in the starting 5, but what I've been impressed with is they push each other, and you get a sense when you go to shoot around and when you're at practice before the game and after the game, and even when we traveled to Kansas State, that these guys are pushing each other. Cam pushes Jordan. Jai Bailey is pushing some of the younger guys, and to me that's a good sign, as opposed to bringing all of these players in that haven't played together, and everybody kind of sits in their silo for a while. So I credit Coach McMahon and the staff. I think they did a really good job in preseason, and in a day and age where you're really not building programs anymore in any sport. You're building a roster, and so when you have to build a roster, then it's very important to get that glue together very quickly. And I think with this group, from what I've seen so far, and even Coach Brady has mentioned it, I think Matt and his staff and these players have done an excellent job of doing it. They look like they've played together for years. They enjoy each other, being around each other. Everybody's joking. And again, some of that comes when you're 8-1, but I've seen that very early on in the season. And to me, that's a great sign.
What kind of environment are you expecting on Saturday? I know you've done some LSU basketball over in Houston. There's quite a few alums in Dallas. I would guess there will be a few hundred LSU fans there for that. Certainly a partisan SMU crowd, but should be a good opportunity to last Power 5 conference opportunity for the Tigers on Saturday.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, all I can tell you is I know there's a big dinner on Friday night, and so that tells me this is one of those trips that a lot of people wanted to take. Number one, it's not that far away. It's Dallas. It's a neutral site, and it's SMU, ACC, and SEC. But yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of alums, not only in the Dallas area, but outside of Dallas, that this may be their only chance to see LSU play. And as you well know, when you bring an 8-1 team in, people get excited. Everybody jumps on board. So I'm expecting it to be. I mean, obviously, it's down the road from SMU, but I think it will be interesting to see, and I expect to hear some Tiger fans there.
Looking forward to it. You and John Brady will be on the call there from Frisco. Safe travels up there, and we'll talk very soon, Chris.
You got it, hon. Have a great weekend.
Sure will. He's Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers, LSU, and SMU. It comes to my attention, I don't know when that game tips off, so I'm going to look that up. Do you know? You're grabbing the mic like you know.
Well, I was gonna tell you it is 3:00.
3:00 tip on Saturday from the Comerica Center there in Frisco. So not on campus at SMU. This is one of those charity games, I believe. So we talked to Bruni about this on Tuesday. It's going to be a neutral site game on the net. It's not going to be a true road game, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it flips. And next year, SMU will come to New Orleans, and they'll do the same thing. And it won't count as a home game. It'll be a neutral game, which counts better for you as the home team. So SMU loses a little bit of bump, gets a little bit of bump than you would as a home team, and LSU loses a little bit as a road team. But the same will be true. And I bet, just my guess, that LSU will have a better contingent in Frisco than SMU will have in New Orleans. That's a guess. I don't have anything to back that up. But Frisco, home to LSU for a couple of events over the next couple of months. Of course, the LSU baseball team is going to go up to Frisco to play in a tournament in week 3 of the non-conference play up there. It's right at the turn of February to March. I'm hoping it's not absolutely freezing up there because I'm planning on going. But we'll see. Doesn't matter if it's freezing or not on Saturday in Frisco because LSU and SMU are going to play at 3 o'clock. You want to listen to that, you can on Eagle 98.1, our sister station. Pregame for John Brady and Chris Blair at 2:30. One more non-conference chance for LSU in the Power 5. They'll have Stetson next Tuesday. They'll have UNO a week from Sunday in the PMAC. And then the following Sunday, as you kind of wrap around Christmas there, Mississippi Valley State for LSU starts.
Through the worst teams in college basketball.
Not good. So it's not going to be a lot of resume boosting there. Plus, you got the holidays. It's a weird time. You're only playing on the weekends at a given point. So then you'll start Saturday at home, the January 4th, against Vanderbilt at a 3:30 tip. So my sincere hope is they can go take care of business against SMU. They can get to, what are they, 8-1 right now? So that'd be 9,
11.
10, 11. They're 11-1 right now?
No, they'd be 11-1 if they run it.
They run the table. If you're 11-1 playing Vanderbilt at home in the PMAC on January 4th on a Saturday, that feels like a good crowd to me. So I'm always kind of looking for those spots that I can get the PMAC pretty full. Kind of like I'm looking for spots, quite frankly, in the football season where I know that Tiger Stadium's going to come alive. And it doesn't always happen. Y'all know that. Y'all have been around here enough. And so I'm kind of looking for a spot there. LSU's 11-1 hosting Vanderbilt on a Saturday afternoon at 3:30. That feels like a good crowd to me. But LSU needs to get off to a good start in conference play with Vanderbilt and then at Missouri because after that it's at Ole Miss, Arkansas, at A&M, at Alabama, Auburn, Texas. It's just a lot. So we'll see. LSU and SMU coming up on Saturday. We'll talk more about the Mustangs on tomorrow's show. We'll take time out, come back, and I'll give you my musings on the rest of the SEC. We'll make fun of some of the teams in the Southeastern Conference for some of the tough scheduling selections that they've got. We'll talk about that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. Jonathan Carbo and his team wish you a Merry Christmas. And they're also here to handle your property and casualty insurance. They're here to help with your group and employee benefits. Group and employee benefits are a big, big deal in terms of hiring and then keeping stability within your organization. If you're just not sure about those benefits and you would like another ear to talk to about how you may be able to improve those things so that you can recruit talent to your organization, so that you can retain talent in your organization, the Highland Insurance Group is happy to help you out with that. And certainly they can help you out with property and casualty insurance. If you're not sure what your hurricane deductible or storm deductible should be, if you're not sure what EPL insurance or cyber insurance respond to, probably best that you figure that out. And the Highland Insurance Group is happy to help you with that. They want to be a part of your team. They want to be a trusted part of your team, as I mentioned, like your attorney, like your CPA, your insurance broker should feel like that. You can check them out online at HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group right here in Baton Rouge, HighlandIG.com.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected. Supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team. And backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Got chores that need some extra muscle?
but a large piece of equipment is overkill? That's what John Deere compact utility tractors were made for. Powerful enough for the work you need to do. Compact enough for how you need to do it. Find the equipment that's right for you at Sunshine Quality Solutions. Check out our current promotions and learn more about what it means to be powered by sunshine at sunequip.com.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
Drive to the college football playoff national championship runs through the playoffs. That's interesting. It says playoff twice there, so we'll have to get that reworded. But tune in for round number 1, Friday, December 20th at 7 p.m. and continuing Saturday, December 21st at 11 a.m. Your home for college football playoffs and the national championship is 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
How would you grade that, Reed?
Well, it's not my fault, Hunt, because the copy says the drive to the college football playoff national championship runs through the playoffs.
That's right.
But just saying playoff twice just is kind of redundant, in my opinion. So it messed me up.
I enjoy when you mess up.
I'm glad you do.
That makes me like the Reeds more.
I'm really glad you enjoy that.
All right, speaking of making fun of people, let's make fun of some SEC teams with the schedule that they were doled out. Again, we knew who everyone was playing, and we knew where they were playing, and we didn't know when teams were playing them. So, Beck, who's the team that I enjoy ribbing the most?
Missouri.
No, it's not Missouri.
Yeah, it is. You hate them.
I mean, we had a whole bit on this show, and you had a what's the thing called? A bumper built in about me and one SEC team. Who would that be?
Texas A&M.
That would be Texas A&M. Let's talk about the Aggies, the schedule that they were given last night. Now, the great news for A&M is that their first 3 SEC games are at home. They have Auburn, Mississippi State, and Florida in Kyle Field. That's excellent news. What that also means is that 4 of their last 5 SEC games are on the road. Now, they're not murderer's row, but it's still not great. 4 of their last 5 SEC games are at Arkansas, at LSU, South Carolina at home, at Missouri, and at Texas. 4 out of 5 league games on the road is not a lot of fun. And when you consider that 2 of those are at DKR in Austin and at Death Valley in Baton Rouge, that's a lot. Texas A&M plays 1 home SEC game after October the 11th. So that's one of those deals where, like, you're going to look at this as an A&M fan all summer long, and you're going to go, if we're not off to a really good start, which includes a trip to South Bend to play Notre Dame, and then SEC home games against Auburn and Florida, like, if you're not off to a good start, it's probably going to spiral again. And I think Mike Elko is going to do a good job at Texas A&M. And that's a relative term. Like, I don't know if he's going to win a national championship or win the SEC, but I think they'll be a pretty good team the whole time he's there. I think he's a good coach, and I think they'll spend a lot of money on players. But I don't see them making the playoff next year. I don't know if that was an anticipation for A&M but I have a hard time getting through that schedule with a playoff berth for the Aggies, which would be just fine. Now, speaking of that state, the Texas A&M Texas Longhorns, that would be the Texas Longhorns, we know that they kind of got a cakewalk this year from the SEC. Oklahoma got raked over the coals. Oklahoma had to go to Oxford. They had to go to Tiger Stadium. They had to play Tennessee. It was tough for Oklahoma this year. But Texas kind of got off easy. Well, next year, I did not realize this until I went to the schedule. Texas is going to Columbus to play Ohio State. I think that LSU playing Clemson is dumb. I think Texas going to Ohio State is really dumb. Now, I understand that there's an entertainment value to this, and I'm not suggesting that it's not great for the fans to play this game. I think it's dumb for the football programs to play these games.
I do want to say, though, I think to me, there is a flip side to this, because let's say, for instance, LSU goes to Clemson and beats them to start the season next year, and Clemson loses, maybe lose one more game, but they win the ACC and they make it to the playoff.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's an opportunity to hurt you very badly, but it's also an opportunity to really boost your resume.
Let me counter that. Georgia beat Clemson by 1,000
this
year. And if Georgia would have...
If they would have lost that game, they'd be out in the playoff.
Because they won
the SEC, but
they won the league.
Yeah, so they probably wouldn't have been in the championship game.
It did not help them. It did not help them at all. There is not, by my estimation, there is not one non-conference victory that any of the 12 playoff teams, the at-large, the 7 at-large for sure, that can hang their hat on and say, that got me in. Maybe Notre Dame at Texas A&M.
Honestly, this may sound dumb, but Boise losing that close game to Oregon has been viewed as a good thing for them.
But if they would have played Sacramento State in that game and gone undefeated on the season,
they'd still be in the same spot.
Yeah, they'd be in the same spot. So it didn't help them.
I don't know.
None of those games help. But Texas playing Ohio State. They also are at Florida, which we didn't think anything of 3 weeks ago. They are at Georgia. And then they will play Texas A&M as well. So all of a sudden, it flips on Texas A&M, because I think at Ohio State's a very difficult game. We know at Georgia's going to be a very difficult game. And I think at Florida's going to be a tough game. And then A&M, that's always going to be kind of a toss-up deal there. So I think Texas is a team that we're going to look at differently next year. We'll see what Arch has. Georgia, we know that they got the screws put to them this year at Oxford, at Tuscaloosa, at DKR in Texas. Those all flip. And their Florida game takes the place of a road game this year. That flips year to year. Sometimes it takes a home game, sometimes it takes a road game. So they only play 3 road games in the entire league this coming year. At Tennessee, then at Auburn, and at Mississippi State. I think it's going to be really tough for Georgia not to make the playoff. Because you're talking about, I don't think they're going to lose... I just don't think they're going to lose 3 games. This is what it's going to take to get there. And it's just tough to hang 3 losses on Georgia. You found a way to get to 2, and Georgia Tech should have hung that last one. And we'll see what Georgia's roster looks like next year. But I think that they're in a much better place moving into next year than they were entering this year. And the last one I want to talk about is Alabama. Beck, what do you think about this non-conference game for Alabama to start the season next year? They are at Florida State.
Yeah.
In Tallahassee. Cakewalk, potential trap game. What do we think?
I don't see... So I guess one thing to mention about all these games is, of course, these games were scheduled a long time ago.
Yes, they were.
And now Florida State looks like they are...
that was one of the worst teams in the country.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't see any other result from this game other than Alabama winning by 3 touchdowns.
Okay. the question becomes, and you've already given me your answer on Florida State, can I find 3 losses for Kalen DeBoer here? Because I desperately need him to lose 3 more games this coming year, and miss the playoff again, because I need the meltdown. I need the absolute disaster in Tuscaloosa. I know Matt will sit in this chair and he'll rant and rave, and I enjoy that very much. I need it from Tuscaloosa. I need it from that side of the equation. I listened to Locked On Alabama after 2 of their losses this year, and twice the guy who hosts that show called it the worst loss in the history of Alabama football.
Whoa.
Which is a really stupid thing to say, because it's not even close, and it's hilarious to me. So this is what I need. I need 3 more losses. Can I get there? Here are the pitfalls. At Florida State, you're telling me no chance. At Georgia, can they lose that game?
Oh, yeah. Early in the season? That's going to be...
Tennessee goes to Alabama. Can they lose that game?
Yeah.
At South Carolina.
Yes.
LSU in Tuscaloosa.
No.
At Auburn in the Iron Bowl.
I don't know. I would say yes. I just think the Iron Bowl is always...
It is. And Hugh Freeze will have another year under his belt, and maybe they're better next year. I don't know who his quarterback's going to be, but that's 6 games. I need 3 losses. I'm not counting Vanderbilt coming in there. I'm not counting them going to Missouri.
But we didn't this year either.
No, we wouldn't. I never said I was right.
Of course
I'm just
not.
trying to be reasonable.
Understandable.
And so I'm trying to get 3 losses here for Bama: at Florida State, at Georgia, at South Carolina, at Auburn. Those are 4 road games. And then Tennessee and LSU in Bryant-Denny Stadium. I need 3. I won't be able to contain my joy if I get to listen to Locked On Alabama or go listen to the Feinbaum clips or deal with Ryan Fowler, who's chirping at Moscona all the time, if they lose 6 games in 2 years. How long did it take Saban to lose 6 games? Like 5 years?
Well, the first couple
No, like
years,
if you go back to like his best run.
Oh, yeah.
Could I go a 5-year stretch where they only lost 6 games total?
Probably, if not less.
Probably so. So I need that so bad, and that schedule is pretty tough. I found I didn't go through every single Saturday, but I found a couple of Saturdays, and this is kind of the beauty of the expanded conference. And bear with me, because I'm a little different than most of y'all from this perspective. I don't watch a lot of non-SEC football. Like, if there's a window where Ohio State is playing Michigan State and Ole Miss is playing Kentucky, like, I'm watching Ole Miss Kentucky. Like, I am going to watch the SEC game barring significant circumstances. That's just how I'm wired. It's what I care about. And so now I've looped Texas and Oklahoma into my preferred watching games, which obviously enhances that. Listen to these SEC slates on these 2 specific, fairly early season Saturdays that I dug up here. Saturday, September the 27th. Listen to these 4 games on September 27th. Notre Dame is at Arkansas, which does interest me a little bit until Notre Dame probably blows them out, but it is Notre Dame going to an SEC team. Ole Miss hosts LSU. Georgia hosts Alabama. Both those games are on the same day. And Auburn goes to A&M, which I find fascinating with those 2 programs trying to take the next step. That's 4 really good games for the Southeastern Conference. Indy at Arkansas, LSU at Ole Miss, Bama at Georgia, Auburn at Texas A&M on one Saturday. And then another one I found a couple of weeks later on October the 11th. Georgia is at Auburn. South Carolina is at LSU. Oklahoma and Texas play in the Cotton Bowl, and Florida is at Texas A&M. Like, that is usually on a given week, I feel like there's 2 pretty good games. That's 2 different weekends where there's 4 that I'm just like, that's good stuff. And so while I am I push back slightly on Stanford and Cal playing in the ACC, or SMU being in the SEC, or USC and Rutgers playing a league game. There is a piece to this that I am now locked into the SEC, and you do create more really good football games on a given weekend. Question is that going to translate into significantly more dollars the next time that they come around and pass the hat for a television contract? So we'll see. Just to look at the schedules that came out there yesterday for the Southeastern Conference. You can check all those out at secsports.com. Our Thursday shows are brought to you by Rouse's Markets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. We'll come back and close it out on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. How does valet maintenance sound? Pretty good? It's real good. If you're a Genesis buyer, Genesis driver, and you just don't feel like you have time to get the oil change, to get the wipers taken care of, to get that air filter, all that kind of stuff that goes into the maintenance of your car, which is important, you don't have to deal with the time aspect of that with the folks at Genesis of Baton Rouge. They will come to you. They will pick up your vehicle. They will bring it to Genesis. They will drop a vehicle with you. You can go on your merry way about the day, and then they'll bring the car right back to you when it's done. And oh, by the way, if that's a new purchase, you're talking about 3 years of complimentary maintenance at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Just all part of being a Genesis buyer. Also, 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, not terrible either. Genesis of Baton Rouge, airline at PQ. You can check them out online, genesisofbatonrouge.com, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
Looking for the ultimate game day experience? Come to the Queen Casino in Baton Rouge. Savor game day platters and snacks, plus drink specials at 1717 Kitchen and Cocktail. So come out for game day and let our team make you the MVP. The Queen Casino, where every moment is a win.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
At Atmos Energy, our smart choice solutions help customers save energy and emissions with rebates up to $500 off high-efficiency natural gas appliances, smart thermostats.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Rouse's Supermarkets.
.45 ESPN Baton Rouge and Citizens Bank and Trust are bringing you the ultimate holiday gift with our Home for the Holiday sweepstakes. Imagine 2025 with your rent or mortgage covered up to $18,000. We're here to make your holidays a whole lot brighter. Just sign up at 1045ESPN.com and you could be living stress-free next year. The winner will be notified on December 20th. That is next Friday. That is a 10 out of 10, Mr. Hunt Palmer.
I'll be pretty blunt. I didn't hear a word of that. I was
That's okay.
sending a text message to
That's
my
fine.
wife.
I just perfectly read that live read.
Cassie, thumbs up if it was a 10, thumbs down if it was not. Oh, she gives him a thumbs up. We got to work on that grading scale. It probably wasn't that great.
It was actually very good.
Alvin Kamara still not at practice for the Saints today, dealing with an illness yesterday. I would imagine a Wednesday and Thursday practice unavailability with an illness shouldn't be too big a concern on Sunday. You never know, though, so we'll see. I'm sure Matt will have much more on that on AFR, and, of course, Ross Jackson will have you covered over on LouisianaSports.net. All right, our Thursday show is brought to you by Rouse's Markets, official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Always tell you every single week to download the Rouse's app. It just makes shopping so much easier. I know a lot of you are going to have some folks over for Christmas, have big dinners, big meals. Everything you need is at Rouse's, and if you don't feel like you have time over the busy holiday season to go in and spend all the time in the grocery store, well, just do the shopping on the app. Have your personal shopper go handle it. And then when you pull up, they'll just put it right in the back of your car and you can go home. It just couldn't be any easier than all of that. So keep Rouse's in mind this holiday season as you get all ready to do all of your grocery shopping. Get the Rouse's app. Rouse's all over South Louisiana and all the way over to Gulf Shores, Alabama for those that are listening over there. So I appreciate Rouse's for being a part of our Thursday shows each and every Thursday. Rouse's, this feels like home. Let's play some Take It or Leave It.
All right, first one, the Skins game will be returning to the PGA Tour schedule for the first time since 2008. The event will be held on Black Friday, which of course was when they used to do all the goofy events back in the day, and they're bringing it back. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Why not? I mean, Black Friday, most people are going to be watching college football and whatnot, doing their shopping or playing golf, taking the day off. But I don't mind the Skins game coming on. That reminds me, seeing one of those like unique events like that. During COVID, we were all like looking for stuff to watch.
Match.
And I watched a Jack Nicklaus versus, was it Sam Snead or Ben Hogan? Somebody that was a lot older than him, but they played one-on-one at Pebble Beach in like the 60s or 70s. And I watched every shot of it, and I didn't know the results. So it was like I was watching it live at Pebble Beach on YouTube. That was one of my nights during COVID when I was living by myself and working by myself and really never leaving the coffee table. It was a sad state of affairs.
It was Jack and Sam Snead at Pebble Beach in 1963.
And I think Nicklaus beat him by one in the on the last hole. But it was great to watch. It was very compelling sports television for me, who had no sports television to watch.
Yep. I can't find the score there, but we'll move on. Rich Rod will be returning to Morgantown for his second stint as head coach of the Mountaineers. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it. Why not? I mean, I know that there was some contention when he left, but let's be honest, he left for Michigan. That's a step up. If you have some self-awareness, you realize that the West Virginia coach, if offered the Michigan job, is probably going to take that 9 out of 10 times, and Rich Rod did that. It's not like he's been a complete, like, off the reservation for a while, or like just doing some television. Like he's called plays for a while now. He went out to Arizona. He was at ULM calling plays. He took the job at Jacksonville State. They just won the conference. So he's been familiar with the transfer portal. He's still calling plays, still involved in college football. I'm not saying he's going to have him humming at the rate that he did when he invented the read option with Pat White and Steve Slayton. But I think that's a fine hire for them. I think he'll do a reasonable job.
All right, next one here. We got a little bit of Cubs action, Hunt.
What is that? Give it to me.
Apparently, the Cubs are involved in talks to secure Astros outfielder Kyle Tucker.
Okay, who's saying this?
John Heyman.
Okay, that's a real person.
Yes, he is. He says, though, the Cubs will have to include either Cam Smith or Matt Shaw, who are both a couple of their top infield prospects.
Those are the last 2 first-round picks.
Along with Seiya Suzuki and Isaac Paredes in a trade for Kyle Tucker.
God, that's a lot.
That is a lot. I don't really like that. I don't really like that trade very much because I don't think the Cubs are one player away, even if it is Kyle Tucker.
Look, Cam Smith.
But take it or leave it.
Nobody. I'll take it. They got to shake something up. Tucker's really good. We don't know what Matt Shaw or Cam Smith is. They've only played in the minors. And,
you're right. We also didn't know what Eloy Jimenez was going to be in that trade.
He was fine.
He's good.
He hadn't been good for a while. Nobody cares about Cubs talk. I realize that, but I'm very fascinated by that. I'm trying to have all those gears churning in my head. That's a lot to give up. Seiya and Paredes and Matt Shaw, I would say no. I would just say no. I would say no.
I would say no as well. I'm not taking that, man. Like I said, I don't think the Cubs are one outfielder away. I mean, Kyle Tucker is really good. He's not a top 10 outfielder in the MLB right now. If you
extrapolate his statistics out for a full season from last year, he is.
Okay, but he got hurt. All right, moving on. Last one here. LSU will get a transfer portal edition before the end of the show tomorrow. Take it or leave it.
I got 24 hours. I'll probably leave it.
Leave it alone.
I'm not 100% convinced. I think it's possible that Jakeem Jackson could jump in. I think it's possible that Varian Brown could jump in. But I don't know if it's going to happen in a 24-hour window. Guys are still making visits. They are knocking them out like 3 in 6 days. But I think that once you commit, you shut down the bidding circus. So it behooves you to create that window open as long as you possibly can, more often than not. So I'll say no, but I wouldn't be shocked if you had one or two over the next 24 hours. That'll do it for a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Talked LSU schedule, talked Emery Jones going to the draft, talked Garrett Nussmeier coming back to LSU, broke down LSU schedule as I said. Luke Johnson talking Saints, Chris Blair talking hoops. You can find it wherever you find your podcast. The Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. That'll do it for us. Matt Moscona is about to drive you home on After Further View. Everybody has a safe and happy Thursday. We're back tomorrow for a Football Friday edition. There's some football on the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN.
The Hunt Palmer Show.